everyone, Annette Kessler here with a new video tutorial, and today I'm going to share with you a few collage principles. So if we want to make excuse me, a collage, how are we going to make sure it looks pretty to the eyes but still be artistic, imaginative, and creative? So we have a few principles that we need to consider or that we need to do to make a successful collage. So the first one is the rule of thirds. So that means that, let's say this is our page. Switched my pen. So each page that we make, doesn't matter what shape it is, it doesn't matter if it's a square or rectangle, it doesn't matter if it's big or small. We want to, in our imagination, divide it into 9 squares. Not very straight. This comes from photography and composition, and it also applies to any art that you make, like scrapbook pages, you take any pictures, art journal pages, and so on. So the rule of thirds means where you want to position your focal point that we're going to talk about in a minute, or where you want to place the main element of your collage or your collage. So basically the best thing you can do, or the rule of thirds says that you want to place your main collage element in one of these 4 points. So I'm going to make it a little bit clearer. Remember those paper dolls that we made? Let's take one. So you don't want to put it in the middle, but you do want to put it on one of those points. Why? Because that is what your brain likes. So according to the human eye and brain, this is the best position. I'm going to, so you can see how better it looks if you put it here than if you just put it in the middle. When you put it on one of those points, the movement of the page is better. Even with taller, see, if you put it here or you put it here, it looks much better than if you put it here, even though there's no background yet. Okay, so that is our first rule. Or let's say our first principle. It's not a rule, because I always say that when you make a collage, basically you need to break rules, and there are no rules, but let's say principles that make your page look better. So I have here 2 pages that I made. Let's not get distracted. So you can see here that this girl, see that she's not in the middle? She's exactly on the 2 points that I've shown you. And this girl also, she's on these points, not exactly in the center. So this is the rule of thirds. So principle number 4 is scale. So what I mean by scale is the scale of whatever you decide to make your element from. So, and I mean exactly for people or objects or something. So the pieces that you add together should more or less match. So for example, the size of the body and the size of the head are not exactly the same, but the scale is easy on the eyes. So for example, if I were to take a head, let's see if I have something here. Okay. She's not cut perfectly, but you can get the idea. But if I took the head with this body and put it, this would be too much. At least for me. So you have to keep in mind to have at least some proportions in your scale. Otherwise, it's completely ridiculous. Unless, of course, ridiculous is what you're going for, which is also cool and can be a really funny page. But if you want these collages to look semi-real, then this is a better example. Like for me, this is too much. Or even this is too small. So you get the idea, right? So this is scale. In our examples, you see that her head is of course bigger than the body, but not too big, so it will look weird. Okay? Even here, her head is slightly bigger than the body, but it is still within a reasonable scale, let's say. Next, I want to talk about telling a story. So that is principle number 5. So when you want to make a collage, you want it to tell some sort of a story. So by that I mean you don't have to write a novel or make a novel on your page, but you still want the page to say something. You want the overall look to say something. So for example, here you have a lady that is going on a bike ride in the trail, and on the way she sees a giraffe and all those plants. So it's a small story, but it helps you add all the details and construct your collage, because if you have like a narrative or a story in your mind, then you can definitely build a scene, let's say, according to that story. Also here you have this lady sitting and holding an ant, and you see that she's crying because she's scared of the ant, but she's fighting her fears and holds it anyway. So again, a really cool story, and then it helps you add all the elements of the collage, like the text that we're going to talk about in a minute, and all the other details by telling the story. The focal point is maybe the most important part of your collage, and basically of any art that you make. So what is the focal point? The focal point is the main element of your page. So it's obvious what is the focal point here, which is this lady, and what's the focal point here. And you always want your focal point to be the most eye-catching item on your collage. You don't want to get distracted by other things. For example, this giraffe is a little bit distracting from her. So I did put her because I really liked how it looked, but you have to consider that. It's not like I'm telling you you can't have distracting things in your background or, in your details. But those principles are something that you have to think about when you're making your collages. So basically, this focal point is really clear because the background is muted. We talked about that. And this one is not as much, but is still, she's the biggest element on the page. She pops out, and this is what you want from your focal point. This is the center of your collage. Or let's say text. Should it be big or small? What do you think? Big or small? Again, that is a question for you to consider, and it has to match the proportions and the design of your page. This is kind of a medium size, this is kind of a medium size, but let's say it also depends on what you want to say. Let's say if this is our page and you have that lady, for example, on the page, so you can go, I don't know, let's say be yourself, so you can go really bold. Okay, and have a really bold text, and you don't need to add a lot more, maybe a little bit of a background and a few details, because the text, since it's so big, it becomes a design element on its own. It's not just a way to say something, but it becomes a really big part of the page. But for example, if you, let's say, another page, so if you have her, you can add more elements. So let's say you can have be yourself and love. So this is a small amount of text with smaller letters, and then you have a lot of space to add items to. So again, something to consider in terms of design, how you want to add your text. Also, there is a possibility not to add text at all to your page. Some people make collages and have no text. I like to add text. I don't know why, but this is what I like to do. And like I said in our examples, I've added the text. I think it adds something to the collage. Again, you don't have to. So we talked about the rule of thirds. We talked about scale. We talked about telling a story. We talked about a focal point. And we talked about words. So these are the 5 collage principles. So I made a page with the principles that we talked about. In this video we talked about some 5 of the collage principles. There's actually 10. And I've added 2 more extra collage principles, but that will be only available to my channel members. So if you want to make collages and you want to learn a little bit more about those fun extra principles that you need to make your collage, go ahead and click on the join button and become a channel member. It's only $5 a month. It's like less than a cup of coffee, and this way you support me in continuing making free videos and the paper perks, free printables for everyone. So you support me there, and then you get free content. So again, like I said, 2 more principles that you can go ahead and check out. So this page is exactly what we talked about. We have our focal point, and then according to the rule of thirds, it is not in the center or in the middle. You see, it is here on these 2 points that we discussed. And then the scale, you see that there are two scales here. One is the door in comparison to the hand and the sauce with the cup. And then there is a secondary scale, which is the cup and the sauce. These are two different parts that I glued together. But you see that they are sort of matching in size, so the scale is really good. Of course that this hand with the sauce and everything is slightly too big to be out of the door, obviously. Let's say this is the entire height of a person, so obviously this is too big, but it is still nice because the scale is proportionate and the background, it doesn't distract your eye, it doesn't make your eye go crazy, and it is still looks good. And then finally the words, the text, I added a little bit of text. Don't cry over spilled. Well, you decide what spill it is. Is it milk, sauce, whatever. The meaning is the same, obviously. So the writing is not big and not small. I didn't want to overpower and distract from the focal point, but I still wanted the writing to be large enough to show. So this is the video for today, the 5 collage principles. Thank you very much for joining me. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel and join the channel and become a member. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you next time.